I think that it's important to be able to bounce ideas off each other. It's got an extra feature which I absolutely love. Oh yeah, there's a nice little spot for something else. With a bit of trepidation, I'll hop into cutting some cable. Thanks very much, Mark, for your good help in more ways than one. Because I'm putting my videos out to the world publicly on YouTube, obviously that means some of the things that I say, the conclusions I draw, the decisions I make are definitely, and I mean definitely, not going to appeal to possibly the majority. So I just thought I'd preempt further when it comes to now getting into the serious end of this electrical installation. Some of my decisions and some of the things that are going to be important to me are not going to appeal to some people. And that's fine. It's absolutely fine. One thing I do want to say, I really welcome your comments. I read them, I think about them, I digest them. I don't agree with all of them. But what's really important to me about that is that there's engagement. And I think that it's important to be able to bounce ideas off each other, because actually that's a very important part of learning and growing yourself. You see things from a different point of view, which to me is so important. So thanks for your comments, and please feel free to fire them away. For those that have watched my videos regularly or watched quite a few of my videos, you will have got the idea that what's important to me is simplicity. I'll say again, when it comes to building Mistress and the decisions I've made, I really do run everything through the does it pass the wheelbarrow mechanics test? And by that, what I mean is, just imagine yourself at sea, and you don't even have to be crossing an ocean. In fact, you could literally be 2 miles offshore. If you're out offshore and the weather just turns like it can, at the end of the day, when you're a skipper of a boat, you take full responsibility, not only for the boat, but for everybody on board. And to not be able to manage and to not be able to investigate and troubleshoot and come up with some solutions, to me, that's just not really very responsible. And the other side of that is, I do intend on crossing oceans. And even if it's just me solo, or even if there's people on board, once you're out at sea, yes, there's backup emergency cooling systems, but you know, sometimes 1, 4, 6, 12 hours of delay can be the difference between real catastrophe and being able to handle the boat and keep everybody, including the boat, safe. So with that, the whole concept of simplicity is very, very important. A good example is the main battery isolation switch. Now this is actually Blue Sea's latest dual circuit switch. It's got an extra feature which I absolutely love. I think it's a really good safety aspect. But I think, as most people know, Blue Sea are a very, very highly regarded company. They make quality products that have very, very good reliability, built with really good materials, built in the US. So they're very trusted in the industry and in marine circles. So I'm going for this single switch, which will do all that it's meant to do. I do understand that there are different options, one of which is to have a dedicated switch for each battery and another one, a third one, to be able to combine the 2 batteries to the engine in the event that that's needed. For me, that just introduces more complexity, and I can say that it does introduce more cost, and with that, more work too. So long as you have the right conductor sizes, there really should be no issue with running current through cables to do work that they're asked to do. I mean, if you're going to skimp on the size of cables, in other words, go small to save cost, or maybe if you haven't consulted the right information to get the right size, you are asking for problems. But so long as you're complying with industry standards, which I can say I am doing. In fact, I'm looking at both the US, the European and the Australian standards for all of this. And I can say there's no complete alignment with all of that information. But what I'm doing is I'm finding a middle road to all of those and making my decisions along that line. And so that's an explanation of why I'm going about things the way I am. So I hope people understand simplicity is important to me. Keeping things easy to install, easy to troubleshoot, reduce the costs, make them as best to problem free as I can, keeping to international standards, and hopefully I'm doing the right thing to get Mistress out there and not be faced with an endless list of things failing and breaking down. Right, with that out of the way, it's on to getting the design sorted out for how I'm going to mount these gauges on this main panel for the navigation area. I've got different options, but I think a good one is to actually make this panel so that it is secured in place to keep the whole thing really firmly in place, and then with the distribution panel to make a cutout where that needs to go with a bit of overlap so that I can hinge just the distribution panel off of the main panel there to get to the back of it, but also to be able to get inside to that space whenever that may be required. And as I showed in the last video, that will leave a space on the edge here where I'll be able to mount these other devices, and bolting and screwing them in place to a fixed panel should make that nice and secure. One other thing though, I'm not going to actually adhere or glue this panel in place, and the reason for that is if I ever need to get in to the whole area and do major sort of cable replacing or whatever, that I can just unscrew this panel and remove the whole lot. I think that's a good idea. Well, that's got that panel made up. I think it's come up all right. I got those radius corners pretty even. You can really add a good finish with a bit of hand sanding actually. Now I can't have the control panel in this space at the moment because obviously it'll just fall through. There's nothing to hold that other bit of panel on. But as you can see with this other clip, one fits inside the other nice and neatly. There is a larger gap on the bottom as you can see, and that's actually going to be for a length of piano hinge by which that whole control panel will be able to pivot out of that panel in order to access all of that wiring in the back there. There is a little bit more room in this panel. Should I get other gauges ahead that I think, oh yeah, there's a nice little spot for something else. But in the meantime, this is the main things that need to go in really in order for me to be able to get things wired up and even get power running inside a Mistress. So now it's on to epoxy coating these panels, and while that's drying, I'll be getting on with starting some crimping for cable ends. Okay, well, serious stuff now. It's time to start cutting cable, fixing lugs, applying heat shrink, and getting things to the point where I can connect them up to the respective places they need to be connected to. Got my supply of dual wool glued heat shrink here, different sizes there for the different size wiring. So now it's really a matter of get on with it. That cable, I've double checked, actually I've triple checked, to make sure that I've got enough length at each end with a bit to spare. And so with a bit of trepidation, I'll hop into cutting some cable. There is one more part of the puzzle. A good SY Mistress patron, Mooloolah Mark. Thanks very much, Mark, for your good help in more ways than one. I was actually in the process of looking at different cable label printers, and good patron Mark contacted me basically offering to get me a label printer. So he and I to and froed discussing the subject, and he's gone ahead and bought pretty much the top of the line Dymo Rhino label printer. So I'm borrowing that from Mark. I will be returning it, but in the meantime I've got the use of this really good printer. So that's the other part of the puzzle that I'll be doing when I'm doing these cables. Now with that, what I do want to do is actually use the heat shrink labels. And so for that reason, I need to have everything organised really well advanced before I start putting lugs on, because I have to put the labels on first, otherwise they won't fit over the lugs. So that's what I'll be doing first up, working out what sort of a system I'm going to use to label things, get these labels printed off, heat shrink those on first, and then I can put the lugs on. So there you go everybody, I have made a respectable start with the cable fittings. Practice will improve things, hey? Till next episode. Could I ask you a quick favour request for watching my video? To like, subscribe, click that bell and share it. I'd really appreciate that.